you're deeply ingrained in a young person's life and their community. And that's what makes it so rewarding as well. It's not something that you show up to once a year. It's a constant, and it's a time commitment, but you get back so much more time than you give.
We believe there's potential in every child, but there's potential in every adult to be that one person who can make an impact on a child's life.
Hi, I'm Jeff Holden, principal and founder of Multipoint Content Strategies and Hear Me Now Studio for podcast production. Many of our local nonprofit agencies have made our community better with their outlook of hope for those they serve. With economic headwinds facing most, if not all, I've offered our studio to produce a podcast for them to help tell their stories in their words, to provide another opportunity to reach out for support at a time when so many of their fundraising efforts have become challenging. Our purpose in doing so is to inform and direct interested donors or volunteers to those organizations that do so much for us and keep that candle of hope burning brightly for all. I'm talking with Demetrius Stone, CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Greater Sacramento. Demetrius started his tenure with the organization as a volunteer mentor, or BIG, 7 years ago and continues to volunteer with the organization today in addition to his CEO position. Having begun his role as CEO in early March, his challenges and opportunities were presented immediately. Demetrius is active in the community, married, and the father of 3 grown daughters. Demetrius, many people seem to know about Big Brothers Big Sisters, but I'm not sure they really understand what it is you provide and to whom. Can you give us an overview of the program?
Absolutely. So Big Brothers Big Sisters provides one-to-one mentoring services to youth. Big Brothers Big Sisters of the Greater Sacramento area works with youth between the ages of 8 to 17 years of age. So that's the age range where we provide Big Brothers and Big Sisters to for littles in our program. While there are plenty of organizations in Sacramento that do provide mentoring, there are many grassroots organizations that I've worked with that are fabulous organizations. Our mentoring model is different from other mentoring services in that our mentors are more trusted, caring adults who organically become mentors to the youth that they are paired with. Our mentoring model is predicated on volunteers, bigs, i.e. mentors, building a relationship with not only their little or their mentee, but also the families. So really, Big Brothers Big Sisters starts with their friendship, which then naturally evolves into a more traditional mentoring type relationship. It's kind of that old saying, kids don't really care about what you know until they know that you care. Another difference with Big Brothers Big Sisters mentoring model is our volunteer bigs go through an orientation and they are trained and supported by professionally trained staff. We have several different programs, our most popular being our community-based program, which is where we provide matches or provide volunteer bigs to littles, and they're actually doing things out in the community, sometimes supported by Big Brothers Big Sisters, such as events that we may receive tickets to. Of course, this is pre-COVID-19, but they get to do sporting events together. We have a sail day. We have bowling nights several times a year. Obviously, that has changed a lot with our current situations. However, we do still have bigs and littles who are finding ways to get out in the community together. So that's our most popular program, is our community-based program. We also have a Bigs with Badges program where we match little brothers and little sisters with volunteer bigs who are in law enforcement. Some of them are correctional officers. Some of them work for local law enforcement agencies. Some of them are even EMTs and firefighters. That's a great way for not only our littles to see from a law enforcement standpoint, sort of like really showing that our law enforcement officers are really community members themselves. And it's helping build that bridge between law enforcement and the community. The great part about that program, what I hear often is from some of our Bigs with Badges who say they have a whole new perspective after being matched with a little in the communities that they maybe police or that they service. They're not going in and making an arrest or enforcing the law. They're going in plain clothes as a friend, and it allows them to get to know the family and the littles community. One other program that we have coming really soon is a workplace mentoring program. to where we'll be partnering with several local private for-profit companies and allowing more of a career building, a college preparedness sort of model to where we have the littles go meet the bigs in their place of work. That will allow a lot more bigs who may be hesitant about the time commitment to really be able to make a difference and be part of our program. So that's one of the programs that we have coming in addition to our current programs, the community-based and the Bigs with Badges program.
And I'm sure a lot of people had no idea you had that much depth and breadth to actually be going into the workplace, to be working with Bigs with Badges, which I think is really a cool way to approach it. And it puts them in touch with the children in their community, not as an officer in whatever field they are, but literally as a civilian just working with a child.
You're absolutely right. That's my favorite program, and that's really one, especially in the times we're currently in. That's a program that has the ability to have a huge impact on our communities and also just the approach to law enforcement. So I'm really looking forward to expanding on that program even more.
What's the process for a child to become a brother or sister in the organization?
So the process is actually quite simple. So a family member or the parent guardian of that child will come to us and they can either give us a call directly at our office or they can visit our website to enroll a child. And really the process is quite simple. Once we receive that letter of interest or that contact letting us know that we do have a little who's interested in being matched with a big brother or big sister, we then bring the family in, the little, as well as a potential big who would be a good match. And everyone goes through a pretty detailed questionnaire just to make sure that we're matching littles, bigs, and families of the same interests and who have really already some natural connections, whether it be through sports or other hobbies that they may have in common. But the process from there is really quite simple. We bring them in for an interview. Our volunteers all go through a background check, including fingerprinting now, which is a new component as of this year. So the process beyond that is once we bring them in for an interview, we get to know what it is that they're really hoping to get out of the program. We make sure that they're a good match. Once we go through a matching process, which is a very detailed, probably too detailed for us to get into here. But at that point, we introduce the big and the little to what we feel will be a great match. So they're introduced, they get to meet the family, the big brother or big sister gets to meet the family as well as the little, spend some time together in the presence of staff. And from that point, we continually monitor the program or the batch to make sure that they're off to a good start. They're getting support from us in any way they can. The process of checking in with them does get, I should say doesn't seem to, but it does get a little less frequent once they've established that rapport and that relationship. But within the first year, we're regularly checking in with the match to make sure that everything is going well and providing as much support as we can.
How long does a relationship between a big and a little last?
Great question. We would love it to last until the little brother or sister turns 18. So that's an ideal world. And even beyond that, we do have big brothers and big sisters who still maintain relationships with their littles through adulthood. So that's the ideal situation. On average, though, the match typically lasts between 1.5 to 2 years. And that's both in Sacramento and also with some of our other nationwide affiliates. And the reason for that, Jeff, is really nothing negative. It's life happens. We have a lot of bigs who maybe will move out or take another job in a different state, or the little brother or little sister's family will move. So things of that nature are typically what will cause a match to end. But on average, it's 1.5 to 2 years. In Sacramento, we ask big brothers and big sisters who would like to volunteer for us to commit to at least 1 year. The reason being for that is many of the youth that we serve come from backgrounds or have a history of adults walking out of their lives or who would come for a short period of time. So knowing that the trauma that could come with a youth who has yet another adult who came into their life for a short period of time before leaving, that's why it's very important that our process for vetting and bringing on volunteers is extremely crucial and extremely extensive.
Now, there's something a little bit unique about you as CEO of the organization, and in a couple of different ways, because you're not 1.5 years or 2 or 3 or 4 with Highland, but you are actually a big brother. You're the CEO of the organization, and you're a volunteer for the same organization that you run. Tell me a little bit about how you think that benefits your ability to run the organization and a little bit about your relationship with your little.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a big brother. I've been Highland's big brother since 2013. So when I met him, he was 9 and about 6 inches shorter than me. And now he's 16 and he's 3 or 4 inches taller than me. So that's been amazing just to see the growth. I have 3 daughters myself, and I just remember how there was that period of growth where they just shot up, and one day you're looking down at them and the next thing you know, you're looking up at them. So he's an amazing kid. He's really helped me learn more about myself as well. He's had, like a lot of teens as they're growing, you know, some of those growing pains and challenges. It has really helped me just being able to be outside of his household, but see some of the challenges that he's facing in talking with him or meeting with him 2 or 3 times a month. It's not only helped me, I feel, become a better father, but it's also helped me become a better big brother also by being in an organization and learning what some of the other bigs are doing that's inspiring. So what's really helpful is I get to talk to big brothers and big sisters all the time. I get to see on our Facebook page, some of our matches are tagging us with some of the fun things that they are doing. And really, quite honestly, Jeff, I sort of look at it as a challenge. Oh, that's a great idea. Highland and I are probably gonna adopt that and take that outing the next time we're together. Also, I see it as a great opportunity to expose Highland to other community leaders and really just to come along with me once the world opens up for business again, but to come along with me to different events and meet with different people and do what so many of our great volunteers do, which is just exposing their little to ideas, opportunities, things perspectives that they may not be receiving in their environment. So I truly feel when you're a volunteer for an organization, you get to see what good volunteer support looks like, and also what it looks like maybe when your volunteers have been forgotten. So with me, I make no mistake that volunteers are what make an organization go. I mean, they're your future donors, your future board members, and in some rare cases, even your future CEO. But it puts me in a position where I'm able to better share my vision with my team on what volunteer support looks like.
I think it's fabulous. I just don't know where you find the time. We have 3 daughters, and technically a son in some way, shape, or form. And
yes, it's made easier, Jeff. I have my 2 older daughters are out of the house, so
there you go.
They have different problems that I hear over the phone now, but it still keeps them busy. You're right.
You know, it's always great to have success stories from the nonprofits that we're talking to. Yours is definitely one, you specifically, and now as you grow the organization. But I'm sure the donors and the potential donors, our volunteers for any of the organizations, they like to hear them as well. Do you have a few of the success stories that you've created in Sacramento through Big Brothers Big Sisters?
Yes, absolutely. So what we've learned is that COVID-19 has really forced everyone to get creative in every aspect of their life. You know, we're forced to do things differently. What we're learning, especially during this pandemic, obviously as we've learned, it's a little bit safer to be outdoors as opposed to being indoors. What we're seeing is so many of our volunteers are able to take their littles out. They're hiking, they're deep sea fishing for the first time. We saw one story that a big shared with us on social media, that he took his little out skipping rocks. You know, there's not many places you can go, not much you can do during this current situation. So, one day they just went out skipping rocks out on a body of water, and his little skipped a rock for the first time ever. And he shared the video. The excitement in that kid's voice was just amazing. And it may be one of the few times, that we've all smiled in the past 4 or 5 months. So seeing things like that, it's giving us an opportunity to really get out and find creative ways to do things that we normally would not do, and finding things out about ourselves as mentors. And even as little kids that we did not think that we would like, they're finding things that wow, I'd rather enjoy this. I would have never have thought just going out skipping rocks or going out deep sea fishing would be something I want to do, but this is amazing. It's really been a great opportunity for us all to find out different things about ourselves.
And if I'm not mistaken, we have a big on the line with us on our Zoom call who is going to share her story with her experience as a big sister. And Natasha, we look forward to hearing what you have to say for us.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks also, Demetrius. It's been a great pleasure volunteering with Big Brothers Big Sisters Sacramento for about 5 years now. I've been matched with my little, who is a curious, empathetic, and incredible young woman. She just graduated from high school in June, so technically our match has completed. However, we've still been FaceTiming. And last weekend we had a socially distanced picnic in the park. So we plan to continue our relationship for a long time. Being a part of this organization has been a really great honor to me, actually. It's not often that you gain the trust of another family and of a young person and get to really see the world through their eyes, both the highs and the lows.
How long were you in your relationship with your little Natasha?
I was matched with her when she was in 8th grade, and she just graduated. So 5 years total. So I've also seen her grow and go through some of those teenage years. And sometimes it was hard, of course, because, teenagers, and that can be difficult. But I think, like Demetrius said earlier, just the always being there and letting her know that no matter what she's going through, she can talk to me about it, or she doesn't have to either. But I'm just view myself as a hopefully positive influence, a positive, steady person in her life that she can always rely on. And I hope that that will continue into her adulthood.
You were a constant, especially, I'm sure,
Exactly.
during some challenging times going through those teenage years, and to have another woman as a mentor to be able to bounce things off of that's not mom. Were there any instances where you were just shocked at the response, something that you did, or a story you can share that humorous, serious, heavy, light?
I have maybe 2 stories that I think, one lighter and a little bit more serious. The first is that our first event, or our first hangout, I guess, that we had as big brothers, big sisters, after that initial meeting where I went over to the house, met her mom, met her godmom, met some of the kids in her neighborhood that her mom takes care of and that she is close to. Our first one-on-one, we wanted to go out to eat. And I didn't really know what she wanted to eat, but I suggested a few restaurants, and one of them I thought was maybe going out on a limb a little bit, but it was sushi at a sushi restaurant here in South Park, Akibono, one of my favorites. And she chose sushi. And so we went to the sushi restaurant, and she ended up loving sushi. She loves the different rolls. She held chopsticks, I think, for the first time. She loved the seaweed salad, which was a big surprise. And so that's something that, funny enough, since she was 13, has been a constant in our relationship. We'll go and get sushi. We'll learn more about Japanese culture. We'll go to the Japanese supermarket. I try to pick her up some pocky when I see it. During this COVID, I picked her up some grocery store sushi for her to enjoy on her own at home. So that's just something that I was very, I don't think a lot of kids are really that into sushi, especially at 13 years old.
Who would have thought?
So that's just kind of, So that was surprising to me, just how curious and interested she was in other cultures. And it's not just sushi. We've gone to a lot of different restaurants. We've been to Thai, Ethiopian, Vietnamese. She's just an incredibly tenacious and curious young lady. The more serious thing that I think maybe surprised me, and maybe didn't surprise me, but I think when I was her age, I was not as empathetic or as attuned to the needs of others. I think teenagers sometimes get a rap for being self-centered. But I remember I went out to eat with her once, and we were talking about winning the lottery and what we would do if we won the lottery. And she said, I might tear up right now, by the way. She said that she would take the money and she would build housing for the homeless and give them jobs.
Wow.
And this is, I think, when she was 15, 14, she said this. I was just floored by that. And since then, we have done a number of things to help our unsheltered in our Sacramento community. We've put together bags, care packages with hygiene staples to give out. And then for her senior project, which she was required to complete as a condition of graduating high school, she could have chose anything in the world to do her senior project on. And she chose volunteering with an organization that helped unsheltered people in Sacramento. And that was South Sacramento Heart, which is a nonprofit that serves homeless in South Sacramento. And so we would go to the meetings, we did outreach, we collected donations. Right in the middle of that, COVID hit during that senior project, but she's continuing to stay involved. And so am I, actually. Now I'm like a full-blown volunteer in this organization. So just, her curiosity, her empathy are just things that I feel so honored to have been able to be a part of and to have some small part in that in her life.
So with all the exposure that you've given her, she's actually drawn you into something that you weren't aware of.
Yeah, that's actually very true.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have done that if she hadn't chosen that as a senior project and we hadn't sought out opportunities to volunteer in that way.
How great. You know, I had a conversation last week with Gina Warren from Neighborhood Wellness, and she's focused specifically just in the Del Paso Heights area. But it surprises me. I'm hearing some of the same things come from our discussion here, which is a much greater geography of people that have never been exposed to some of the things that we all take for granted. You know, whether it be sushi or Thai or a type of food, or visiting the American River and skipping rocks, or Lake Natoma for a hike around the lake. Just these things that, again, we take for granted that some of these kids never have the exposure to, nor would they if they didn't have a big brother or a big sister. So it's really a compliment to what you do to help expose these children to things that, again, might never happen if they didn't associate with the organization.
And Jeff, if I could add, I so love hearing volunteers like Natasha, who are really the backbone of our organization.
Mm-hmm.
But sharing the stories that she shared really drives home to me the point that, you know, it's not so much about being a mentor in the way that you're teaching your little brother or your little sister something. It's just that spending time listening to them and getting them to know that there's this volunteer, big brother, big sister, who is volunteering their free time to come hang out and spend time with me. I think that's the biggest thing that, and just hearing Natasha's story and hearing stories from volunteers such as Natasha just really drives that point home.
Well, Demetrius, with big brothers, or actually I should say with a big sister like Natasha, it would really seem it's easy to get attention for the program, but pandemic inclusive, I know there's a lot of work to be done. Tell me about how you're going about getting funding for the operation today, and especially in light of no events that so many organizations have leaned on year after year.
Yeah, that's a great question, and we're doing similar things to many other agencies as far as just reaching into our creative brains to come up with some new ideas. So we have a virtual fundraising event, which you're starting to see a lot more of, virtual auctions. That's planned sometime between Thanksgiving and December of this year. Prior to that, in October, we have actually an absolutely fun and amazing event called Over the Edge, where we'll give 76 people an opportunity to rappel over the edge of the Radisson Inn in downtown Sacramento. It's a 16-story hotel. That adds a whole nother level of excitement and fun, maybe that some people might not be too comfortable with, but it's one of those opportunities that really will allow us to not only raise money, but also to just have a great, fun, very unique event. And it's easy to adhere to some of the social distancing guidelines when you're doing an event such as Over the Edge. I mean, there'll be some times where we'll still be using precautions, but it allows us to do some things outdoors that just really right now aren't conducive to having a gala, especially indoors.
Well, and I like 16 stories of social distancing. That's pretty good distance.
You're right. Some people may, spend a lot of time coming down that building. So it's probably going to be a couple of minutes for some people, but that's just a great event. We're so looking forward to that. We were thrilled when we had the opportunity to participate in that. And really, it's in these times, as far as your original question of as far as funding, during this time where we're in a pandemic, really it's a matter of just everyone from our board of directors to a big circle that we're creating where we're going to have a group of 5 to 10 of our volunteer bigs, and everyone just putting our collective heads together and just figuring out what we can do to not only raise awareness, but to get the message out, to share some of the wonderful things that we are doing that will encourage more people to become supporters. So, it's just like everyone else, look, there's no roadmap to what a nonprofit or any organization would do in the event of a pandemic. There's really not a blueprint for this because it's something that hasn't happened in our history. But again, it's allowed us an opportunity to be super creative.
Well, certainly baptism by fire for the guy that's the new CEO of the organization.
Yes, I started March 9th, which was the absolute perfect time, March 9th, 2020, to
Well,
start your first CEO job.
you had 2 days before everything shut down. Come on,
Yeah.
why didn't you get it together?
Should have had it together by then.
I'm going to put you on the spot with a question here. You're quoted as saying, dream bigger than you dare to dream. How are you dreaming bigger for the organization?
Great question. So dream bigger than you dare to dream. And I'm so glad you brought that up. That is really one of my favorite quotes and things that I like to share with young people. Currently in Sacramento, for the Big Brothers Big Sisters affiliate, we serve 175 youth. So there are 175 youth that are involved in either our community-based program or our Bigs with Badges program. There are organizations or Big Brothers affiliates, I should say, of similar size to the city of Sacramento, specifically Kansas City, Missouri, Cincinnati, Ohio, and Albuquerque, New Mexico. All three of those affiliates in those cities, the Big Brothers Big Sisters affiliates, serve between 1,200 to 1,500 youth in their programs. So while Sacramento Big Brothers Big Sisters has been around for over 55 years, and it's a great organization, I'm super privileged and honored to be a part of it. We do have the ability, and I'm somewhat of a competitive person myself, so when I see cities of similar size who have roughly 10 times the youth in their program as we do, I look at that as a challenge, realizing that Sacramento has its own unique challenges when it comes to the nonprofit world. Just number one being that there are so many nonprofits in the city of Sacramento. Although we are a mid-major city, we're not really a city of commerce. There's not a lot of large corporations here. But really, this whole situation in 2020 has allowed us to rethink everything that we do, from how we raise money to how we mentor face-to-face to dreaming bigger for what we can do. So my goal is to emerge on the other side of this pandemic being just as strong as we are today, if not stronger and bigger, and serving more youth. So I really want us to get to a point where Big Brothers Big Sisters of Sacramento just sort of rolls off the tongue. Everyone knows exactly who we are. Everyone knows where we're located, and everyone knows exactly what we do with our wonderful programs.
I just wanted to chime in on how I've seen some of the changes already in the leadership of Big Brothers Big Sisters and how positive I think it is. It's always been a really positive experience and organization for me. And Demetrius has, I think, made it even more so in some of the things I've seen him do even in the short few months during a pandemic that he's been a leader of the organization. One of those things is convening a lot of us bigs to talk about some of the social and racial justice issues that are going on in our communities and how we talk to our littles about what they're seeing on the news and maybe what they've experienced or are experiencing. I think that sort of training that's really timely and really pertinent to this moment is so helpful. I also know that going on this podcast, for example, reaching out and recruiting bigs from all different backgrounds is something that's going to make this organization even stronger. Because at the end of the day, the communities that we're serving are some of the most underserved communities. And the potential for this organization to really impact communities and uplift them, I think, is huge. It has so much legitimacy. It's been around forever. There's been studies on this program showing that it's effective. I just think the potential is huge. And I think Demetrius and the way he's thinking so big is really heartening to me. And I think it's going to do a lot for the organization and for our community of Sacramento overall.
Thank you so much, Natasha. That really makes me feel good knowing that the effort and the passion that I put into even in the few short months is so appreciated. So I sincerely appreciate you sharing that.
It also indicates the significance of the understanding that your bigs have. This isn't an employee, this is a volunteer. And
right.
Natasha, you're speaking as if you've worked for the organization for the last 5 years as opposed to being a volunteer with an organization. And that's very different from other situations where you've got volunteers who are, superficial or satellite to the organization.
Yeah.
Your contribution is very, very significant, and it's great to hear it.
I would just say that it can't be superficial because you're deeply ingrained in a young person's life and their community. And that's what makes it so rewarding as well. It's not something that you show up to once a year. It's a constant, and it's a time commitment, but you get back so much more time than you give.
Very well said.
I agree. So, Demetrius, one of the things that I close with is if you were going to leave the listener with one thought about Big Brothers Big Sisters, what would it be? And Natasha, you can chime in here too, because I think your contribution is going to be appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to share, and I also can't wait to hear what Natasha would share as well. But I would say Big Brothers Big Sisters, our motto is we believe there's potential in every child. But one thing I want to leave my listeners with also is there's potential in every adult to be that one person who can make an impact on a child's life as a nonprofit organization who is not only responsible for developing the youth or supporting our volunteers in developing the young people in our program to become very contributing, successful members of society. And obviously with that comes along some things that we, have to vet in volunteers. With that being said, I think every person or every adult can think of one person in their life who had a huge positive impact on them as they went through adolescence and young adulthood. What we really want people to know is we all have the opportunity to be that one person. I think some of us may be a little intimidated by the word mentor, and we think that I have to have everything together. I have to have everything together financially, emotionally, or what have you. I have to be the perfect person to be a mentor for an adult, which is absolutely not true. Really, to be a mentor or a big brother, big sisters, which is really what we're hoping to achieve. As Natasha mentioned, specifically Black and Indigenous people of color, we are looking for mentors who fit the demographic of many of the youth that we serve. With that being said, everyone has that potential to be a huge, impactful person in a young child's life, whether they know it or not. So that would be the one thing I'd want to leave listeners with.
Natasha, anything from a volunteer perspective, from a big sister perspective?
I think that this is an opportunity to be involved in a young person's life that will change both of your lives. And how many opportunities in your life do you get like that, where you can be just somebody who wants to contribute to your community, and you have an organization that will show you how to do that. And you will be able to create a lasting bond with that will enrich both of your lives in ways you never could have imagined.
Boy, I don't think that could have been said any better, do you?
Yes, it's perfect.
So if somebody wants to get in touch with the organization, how do they go about doing it?
Yeah, they can reach out to us via our website, which is BBBS, that's Big Brothers Big Sisters. Mm-hmm. So BBBS-SAC.org. They can also reach us on social media. We're at BBBS Greater SAC on both Instagram and Twitter. You can also find us on Facebook, which is where we're the most active social media-wise. And you can find us on Facebook at Big Brothers Big Sisters Greater Sacramento. And on our website, you can learn more about our organization. You can sign up to be a volunteer. You can enroll a little in our program. And you can also donate if you so desire to and feel compelled to.
Wonderful. Well, I have to thank you both for what you're doing in the community. And I think everybody appreciates the contributions you make on a day-to-day basis. Demetrius certainly running the organization. Natasha, from your volunteering perspective, now that we know you're even involved in another organization as a result of your little, I think is really, really neat. So,
yes.
Thank you both for the contribution. Thanks for your time.
Yes, thank you for having us, Jeff.
Thanks for the opportunity.
You're welcome. If what you heard today moved you, please reach out to that organization and find a way you can support their cause. Thank you for listening. Thank you for any support you can give. And by all means, feel free to share, subscribe, and give us a review. This production was made possible by Multipoint Content Strategies and Hear Me Now Studio.